Okay, so what we're going to do now is show you how to do just a normal clean out of a gun. Now, if you've greased it and you've prepared it after you've sprayed, generally this only needs to sort of get done when you have a shutdown for a long time, or you got a problem. Now, the best thing is a C-spanner. That's the tool that you're going to need, a screwdriver, some picks, you need your grease for assembly, and some acetone to wash the product, to wash the bits. So first of all, we want to undo the nozzle. We just want to put that aside. Then we get the C-spanner, take our nut off. Now in the nut, sometimes you can get a build-up of product inside there, but it's pretty clean at the moment. There's also a plastic seal inside here, so you need to make sure that that's not damaged. If you're going to need to wash this, we don't need to wash this at the moment. You'd have to pick that out because you don't want to put any seals in acetone because it just destroys them. So we just want to make sure that you've got your bench area nice and clear, so you've got plenty of room to work. Put some rags down just to so you can just lay, because you're going to get product coming out of the pieces as we pull it apart. So first of all, I want to take out our check valve. Now I want to do this. I'll do this in a bit of an order. So I want to get all the ISO stuff out first. So we'll just put that aside, and then we want to get our cartridge out. So we want to just make sure that that's out. Okay, so we can just move that out. We just put them aside. Then what we want to do is with the resin side, we just want to pop them out as well. But we just want to keep them away from each other. We don't want them to contaminate each other, and then you'll have a right time trying to get them clean. Now this cleaning that we're doing today is, if this is just a normal clean up after you've done a big spray. If you've had a problem where a seal has leaked and you've got product and it's gone off, you're going to need to use our BT cleaner, which is our boil point cleaner, which you put in a chip cooker, and anything that's metal's got no seals on it can go in that chip cooker. If there's any seals, the BT cleaner will just destroy it. So basically we've just pulled our check valves, which have the filter. These are what we call our cartridge. We just want to lay them aside. So what I want to do now is basically just undo the main cartridge itself. And we just want to pull that apart and just leave that aside. Now this is our mixing chamber. Okay, it's always handy to have rags around. Now the mixing chamber, it's important that we get this nice and clean. So generally you can wipe it down and get rid of the excess grease. Even before I start, I just set it in the acetone, just let the acetone do its work, and then we can come back to it. So just with a little pick tool, doesn't matter which one you use. I generally do the ISO first, because if you wash the resin first it goes black and that just makes it just untidy. So we'll just pull our O-rings off, because you get a couple of goes out of the O-rings. You don't need to change them straight every time. As long as they're flexible, you can get a couple of goes. So generally I just give them a wipe. Good to check the ISO ones. They're the ones that generally go crusly. So just doing the cartridge now. Now the cartridge has a spring inside it, and there's a small O-ring in the seat. So we just want to just give it a bit of a twist and then bring that out, and you can see the small O-ring. Okay, so we just want to put that there. That can now go in the acetone. We want to just get the spring out. So we just want to make sure that there's nothing clogged up or anything in that. Looks nice and clean. And now we've got our check valve. So first what we want to do is just check to make sure that there's no debris on the inside. So that's all clean, there's no debris. And what we want to do is there is a screw head. Now you want to be able to take that, unscrew that. Now sometimes if it's been in for a while, it may take a little bit to undo, but if you put a little bit of grease on it when you rebuild it, they generally do come out. So our check valve has a small ball, it's got the spring, and then it's got the screw that holds it in. So all that can go in. Now we want to remove the two O-rings. And then we've got the big O-ring that seals on the manifold. Want to make sure that's out as well. Just give them a wipe. That's all good. So basically, we want to put that in there as well. So that's all done and dusted. While they're soaking, you can get your get the mixing chamber out. And so what we want to do is generally you've got two size drill bits. You've got one that goes down into the tip, which you clean during your spraying process. But there's also the bigger one for your chamber. It's actually your import port. So you just want to make sure that's all clean. Get your brush, just give it a good wash. And then what you want to do is there's what they call a balance hole. Now it's a very small hole. You need a very small drill bit. I first trying it with air. I'll just blow it out with some air and we'll see if it comes clean. Okay, so a mixing chamber. I just blew it clean. It's nice and clear. The best way to see if the balance port is clean, you just put it up to the sky and you'll be able to see light all the way through. So if you can see light all the way through between the two ports, you know you've got it nice and clean. If not, you get the real fine drill bit and give it a clean. Now as they wear, sometimes you might need to what they call linish the side of the mixing chamber. What you can do is get a sheet of glass or something that's very, very flat, put a bit of 180, a little bit of water and just figure eight just to clean those edges, because you don't want any scoring on those edges, because then your seat won't seal and you'll have a leak and you'll have problems. So you generally don't have to do that too often, but just make sure you do check it to make sure that that's all nice and clean. Okay, so I'm just going to put that back in, just gives it a bit more time to soak and give it all nice and clean. So what we want to do is just make sure that everything is brushed, everything is cleaned. There is no debris, there is no ISO left on any of the parts that we've done so far. Now you can purchase the gun cleaning kit. This is excellent. It's one of the best things that Graco do as an accessory. So what you want to do is just get your brush, just make sure that everything's nice and clean. There are different sizes for different applications, so you just want to make sure that everything's clean, especially with your ISO side. So with the filter, this is a very fine filter. So what you want to do is just blow it clean, and once again just put it up to the light. And if you can see through it and there's no blockages, you know you've got all the contaminants out of it, which it has, so that's excellent. So we just want to make sure that everything's nice and clean. And we'll just let that just soak for a bit. And now what we want to do is get our resin parts apart. So it's exactly the same as the ISO side. Just get rid of your excess. This is obviously because we were spraying black. Now just when you are doing this with a pair of, just be gentle, you don't want to be getting too aggressive with it. Okay, so now the seat that I spoke about before that I took off the ISO, that's where that sits. So that's where that sits, and it actually slides along there. So if there's any grooves on your mixing chamber or on your seat, you're going to have a leakage, and then once you have leakage, it's all over. Because if you're 2000 psi pushing down on that, that gives you a good seal. But once you get, if there's any damage and the 2000 psi gets underneath, we'll just lift it up, and then you'll have quite a mess. So just get our pick tool again. Now you want to keep your O-rings separately, you don't want to mix them up. Yeah, the kits aren't very expensive, you can just change them if you like. It's not to get an O-ring kit. Okay, so we'll just get that out. And what we want to do now is the same with this, just any excess off. There. And we want to get, once again, the O-ring off. As you can see, I've broken the main rule, have gloves on, but they were getting in my way to show you guys how to do it. So once again, we just take the screw out, the spring, just make sure you don't lose the ball. We want to put all that in there, all nice, and then. So now it comes to the actual chamber body. It's important to remember before you wash it, that you remove this O-ring that's in the front. So we just want to put that one aside. Now some of the O-rings are quite close in size, so you just want to make sure that you do keep them separated. What you want to do is just remove your grease nipple as well. And you also want to remove your air adjuster. Now, generally you don't need to adjust this too often. It's more when you are using for foam, but it's got a small O-ring on there, so we want to make sure that we don't put that in the acetone. There's one last O-ring, that's at the back here. Okay, we just want to pick that out as well. And now that's basically ready to be cleaned. Okay, so I'm just going to wash everything up, get everything clean. Then when I come back, I'll assemble it and we'll be off to trot. Okay, so basically we just want to do our final clean. There's a couple of important areas that you need to focus on. Now this port here, this is your air port, so we just want to make sure that that's nice and clean, so you're getting all your airflow through there. Just want to make sure that that's all right. So just want to make sure that that's nice and clean, goes all the way through. So you just want to make sure that that's clean. There's also some important, there's another important area. So basically from your check valve going into your cartridge, there's a port there as well. So you want to make sure that that's all clean. So we just want to make sure that that goes all the way through. The other one first. sure, yep, that goes all the way through. Want to make sure that one does as well. So you'll be able to see the brush come through here. It's probably a little bit hard with the camera, but that's all clear, that's all nice and clean. I don't know if you can see that there, but want to make sure that goes all the way through. Because if these aren't clean, you're going to get a blockage, and you could become out of ratio. So really, that's all clean now. I used a big brush to get into here to get rid of all the chemicals, so it's all nice and clean. Just want to give it a good wipe down before you go too much further. Get rid of all the old grease. So basically, that's ready to go. So what we want to do first of all is make sure you put the seals back in. This can get a little bit tricky. That's in like that. Then you put your O-ring on the back. That's all done. So that's basically ready to go. So generally what I like to do, you can either use the tip, just make sure that will make sure that the seal is all the way home and it won't pick up as it goes out, so it's easy to see as before you put it together. So basically, all right to go, sides are nice, our mixing chamber is done. So what we want to do is put some grease on the tip on our mixing chamber. We just want to make sure. Now, with these, the 2020, 22s, or the ones that we're using for the 1-to-1s, the orifices are the same on both sides. Now, some guns you may use have a different size hole, so it's really important that on top of the mixing chamber there is actually a number. Now that needs to be facing up. So for this mixing chamber, it doesn't matter. It's not an issue. But if you are using a different type of machine and you've got the same type of gun, just make sure that you always have the writing or the inscription facing the top. So a little bit of grease on the seal, back around here as well. So nice bit of grease inside here where it slides. Now you've got your flats, you need to line your flats up. Look, some people put the chamber into the cartridge itself, but I generally just like to have it all lined up, get it into place. So just make sure you don't cross thread it. It is a coarse thread, but it still has a tendency to cross thread. So what you want to do is just screw that up all the way. Make sure it's in place. Obviously the check valve hole's got to be facing down. So we get the C-spanner. Okay, so that's done up. That's all nice, ready to go. So we can just put that aside. Doesn't matter which side you do first. I generally like to do the resin side first. So what we're going to do is just make sure, do our final inspection. Make sure there's no debris, there's no damage where the seals run. So you want to just check your seat as well. Make sure that there's no grooves or anything that's going to cause you dramas down the track. Small O-ring goes on nicely. The spring, just want to make sure it's not damaged or it hasn't got any debris that's going to stop it from allowing it to move backwards and forwards. Bit of grease, just a little bit, and then we can just push that down. Now what you want to do is just make sure it goes all the way down so it's all nice and smooth. It's not going to pick up on anything. Now this is a bit of a trap that I think a lot of people that have built these guns have been caught out before. Now you've got 2 O-rings on your cartridge. Okay, now make sure it's on the inner O-ring, because if it goes onto there, that's actually that's been machined so you can stick your screwdriver underneath to flick it out. So if it's on there, you're going to have massive leakage. So it's really important that you double check that it is on the inner groove so you don't have that issue. Okay, so that's all ready to go. That's all nice. So what we're going to do is our check valve. Once again, just check your ball, make sure there's no debris on it, it's all nice and clean. So that can go in like that. Spring, little bit of grease on the thread, just makes it easy. Now to get this to the right adjustment, what you want to do is just go down past the halfway down the thread, and then you want to come back, and on the inside of here there's a bit of a taper. You want to be flush with the taper, so I just need to go down a bit. That's it. Put that on there. Then we can put our O-ring on. It's all nice. And then our O-ring that sits on the manifold, we want to put a bit of grease on them both. Okay, so that's the B side done. Now we need to do the A side. So the A side's a little bit different for your final clean. Sometimes you can get a little bit of build up in the groove and on the seat itself. So you just want to make sure that they're all clean. Bit of grease. Once again, just do our final checks. Once again, just want to make sure that all the grooves are all clean. There's no build up of ISO. Need to just check inside there, inside here, that there's nothing left. It's all nice and clean. So put the spring in, bit of grease. Make sure it goes way past it needs to, so you know it's not going to give you dramas. You can get the buff and just buff these out. I'll get away with it this time, but you want to make sure that you make sure that it's all clean. Okay, so the ball, once again, just make sure the ball's all clean, there's no debris on it. Okay, don't forget the grease. So once again, we screw past of where it's supposed to sit, and we just come back so it's just flush with the taper. Okay, so that's basically the filter goes on now, the O-ring, onto for the manifold, then our cartridge O-rings. Okay, so basically we're ready to put the gun together. Now just make sure the gun that's got the A and the B side, you don't want to mix any of that up. So let's just bit of grease, make sure it's well lubed. And then we just push that all the way in. You want to go down nice and square. Once again, you want to push it down past where it normally sits so you know it's going to work. You can do it with the resin side now. Okay, just push it down, make sure it goes past where it's supposed to. Now just make sure that you put the A side, it's actually got A initials on it, so you want to make sure that goes on the correct side. Now it should just slide in nicely, just like that. So it's firm, but it's not tight to push down. Okay, so we'll just do the same with the resin side. Beautiful, it's all nice and in. Now just with the cap, this cap's quite clean, just need to just check there's no build up. You want to make sure that it goes in, it's got plenty of lube on it, because it does actually hold the cartridges in place. So you may need to put just a bit of pressure on it, then screw it up. And just make sure it's all the way home. Okay, so our grease nipple back in where it goes. So just, this screws back in. So what you want to do is just bottom it out, just turn it back a bit. That's pretty right. This is all nice and clean. Just want to make sure that there's no damage on that seal area and also the seal area on the outside. And this just needs to be firm. It doesn't need to be super tight. Okay, so basically that's the gun rebuilt. If you have to pull this side apart, it's quite easy. It's just got the C spanner. It's got a slide in there. It's only got 2 O-rings in it. Just might need to clean it out, but generally that's all you need to do. It's ready to go. I generally like to just put the air onto it, put some grease into it with the grease gun, but then you don't have to really do that. You can just grab the grease gun and put some grease in it. Just put some grease on the end of the tip, the mixing chamber, just to stop any air going in, but if not, that's it.